Hello students, good day. Now for today's lecture, I'll be discussing on social organizations and social institutions. So there are a lot of concepts, terminologies that I'll be introducing and explaining. So I hope you're having a good day. So the semester will be at its end. So unting push na lang guys ha. So tiis-tiis tayo and a little bit of perseverance. So you'll be finishing this semester and some of you will be graduating already. Congratulations. So I will take over muna no. In the case, the primary readings would be coming from Ma'am Naha, no? So yung mga video lectures din ni Ma'am Naha, you have to watch and listen to them. So this will serve as a supplement, no? Well, I'm recording the video as well to post it no, in my YouTube account. Although it's not monetized, no? And to practice one of my favorite subjects when I was teaching in the senior high, which is UCSP or sociology in the old curriculum of the college. Okay, so we'll discuss social organizations and social institutions. And these terminologies would now be part of the society, which is now the object to be analyzed in our subject, diba? Sociology. Yan. So we define social organizations and social institutions. So first we look into the main object that we are attempting to analyze. Or the subject rather, diba? It's a subject. Okay. So we look into society. Okay, we already know the definition of society, but coming from a different source, it refers to a group of people sharing a common culture within a defined territorial boundaries. So it is a social system. So when we talk about system, there has networks. There are networks pala. There are networks. There's a certain processes, diba? Yung networks natin between individuals, between groups that we will be clarifying later its definition. There are processes. So processes would now include socialization, conformity, deviance, diba? So that is society. It's a very broad term which we are attempting to study. So sharing a common culture as well, such as your communities, the Filipino culture, the Igbo culture, di ba? Yan. We have to identify then social institutions and later your social organization. So we look into the key terms. So social institution, it is a group of people assigned to perform a definite task and function in a social system. So when we refer or use the term social institution, I have bold the letter here. So I hope you could check the bold letters. Perform a definite task. So speaking of a definite task, an example of a social institution would now be the government. Anong function ng or task ng government? Madami, di ba? Or looking into the word government itself, its task is to govern the society. A church is a social institution. Ano yung task ng church? To propagate a belief system, di ba? It may also be a source for culture, di ba? The school is an institution. Anong task ng school? It's to educate children. So yun yung social institution. Later, papasok dito yung social organization. At these two terminologies are actually associated with one another. So medyo magkalapit sila, madaming similarities. Pero pag social institution, there's a definite task and function. Later makikita natin sa social organization kung ano yung difference, no? Then we have groups. So simply groups without looking into the definition. Yung groups pag nagsama-sama yung mga tao, it's already considered as a group. 'Di ba? Although I just repeated the terms kasi alam naman na natin when people will group together, there's a certain group of people nagsama-sama, nagkumpulan, that is now a group. So looking into its English or formal definition, group or social group constitute by two or more person. Kung ikaw lang mag-isa, you cannot form a group. So it has to be two or more. A couple is a group. Magshota, di ba? Mag-irog, di ba? And they are committing PDA, for instance, whatever. Or more persons. So two or more. Yan yung ano natin, Yan yung quantity natin. Who interact together and are together physically. But here's a question mark already. Paano FB group? Okay, time will now change, di ba? Time is progressive. So, more likely are physically together. Medyo hindi na siya applicable right now, no? Kasi may Facebook group, di ba? We have your groups from your virtual world. And that is another subject to be discussed actually. They have something in common, are interacting, and are guided by a set of norms. In common would now be kunyari would be your Pol-Sci group or group of engineering students, di ba? When you look at them, there's something that is you could now identify that is in common to them, no? So group of ladies, di ba? Yan. A group within the jeep. Although, paano naging common siya? Possibility, they are interacting. Pag pumasok ka na sa loob ng jeepney, ang possible interaction is through observation. Titignan mo yung katabi mo, di ba? Or through yung pagpasa ng bayad. That is already interaction. And are guided by a set of norms. Yan. So, in each group, may certain groups. May certain norms, by the way. So, within your group of friends, your cliques, group of friends, your peers, may norm na naka-indicate dyan, di ba? Iba yung behavior mo pag nasa loob ka ng kagrupo mo, mga kaibigan mo, di ba? May norm ka din sa classroom. Excuse me. Yan. So, requirement for a group, there must be 2 or more members. Yan, yung sinabi ko kanina. There must be an interaction. So, this is now yung communication process. Possibly an example would now be the communication process. You're now talking to him. You're now talking with each other. Or pwede din sa loob ng jeep na interaction, pagpasa ng bayad, di ba? Or with your friends, pag-uusap. In the school, di ba? The classroom is considered to be a group. Wherein, in a formal setting, the teacher will now speak. And students supposedly will now listen, so may interaction siya. Or kung informal setting, kunyari break, naglalaro, naghaharutan dyan sa classroom, that is now an interaction. The members of the group must be together physically. Now, I think this is a question mark, no? Lalo na especially in our virtual setting. So, it has something to do with yung social connection theory ni Scott and Steger. Although I'll not discuss it further, no? Yan. There are forms of human clusters, no? So, when we talk about cluster is similar with the term group, no? So, cluster A ka, cluster B, cluster C. Okay. Now, there are some groups that nandun sila physically pero walang interaction. Ang tawag natin dito is aggregate cluster. So, aggregate cluster are basically unstructured. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na territory. People are found in one place but they do not interact with each other. Occasionally, they may glance at each other, just like the jeepney, and leave a sigh of objective. Ha, sigh, ang ganda naman nun, pwede ko kilala. But they are not worried about the opinions and attitude of others. So, example, they find themselves in a certain place. So, nandito yung jeepney, di ba? Waiting in a jeep or inside the jeepney. People riding in a plane. So, that is a form of aggregate cluster. Or what else? Nasa loob kayo ng grocery, lahat kayo. That is again an aggregate cluster. So, I hope medyo simple lang dito sa aggregate cluster. In a place but no interaction. Social category, now ganito. Pag sinasabi natin social category, as a form of human group or cluster, members possess a common identifying status characteristics. So, tanda natin, no? The society provides an identity or determines or rather provides an identity, no? Tapos we now categorize ourselves to that group in order for us to have an identity. That is under social category. But please take note, they do not interact socially. So we group ourselves, the term there is group ourselves, for instance, in terms of our identity. Male and female, sex, di ba? So when we talk about sex, sex is something that is biological. That is something that is inherited. So that is ascribed status. Yung sa discussion natin sa deviance. Now, gender is something that is achieved. Something that we not acquire, something that we achieve. Yung gusto natin, no? So pag gender, it's something that is it is a social construction, while gender is basically biological. So going back sa gender, madami tayong gender. So hindi lang male, female, we have the lesbians, the bisexuals, LGBT, no, and transsexuals, no. Yan. So we group according to identity pero walang social interaction. So we group them as male and females according to age, youth and senior citizens according to economic status, lower class, upper class, middle class, di ba? In terms of religion, Roman Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, Muslims, born agains, di ba? Race, Americans or Caucasians, di ba? Africans, di ba? Your Arabians, your Filipinos, your Malays, your Japanese, your Orients, di ba? So, social category. Okay. So, yun din isang way to identify groups. May identity, pero walang interaction. Now, dito sa collective, by the way, mag-gets natin. Aggregate, place yung determinant natin, walang interaction. Social category, identity, yung or characteristic, yung notion dito, pero wala pa ring interaction. Dito sa collective is sort of may interaction na dito. So collective is composed of people who share some kind of belief. So more likely, hindi siya similar sa social category. So more likely under belief siya, no? Which prepare them for action. So dito na papasok yung interaction, instinctively forming a temporary or short-lived group. Or it could be longer actually, no? Example of this one would be cooperative. So people will now interact in terms of finances, diba? Cooperatives. Now, another thing about collective is may ano siya, may goal siya. Yan. Prepare them for action. So ano yung action ng cooperative? Depende yan sa mandates ng ating cooperative. Kung credit cooperative siya, magpautang siya. Kung saving cooperative siya, maghulog-hulog ka tapos mag-accumulate yan ng pera. Another thing would be in terms of political and social movements, di ba? Some kind of belief, di ba? So when certain individuals have that similar political belief or sentiment, so naggugrupo sila. And dyan na mabubuo yung ating grupo or yung collective, so political and social movements. Dito na papasok yung mga left-wing individuals natin, yung mga aktivista, di ba? We also have your right wings, di ba? Yung mga masyadong extremists, di ba? Yung mga Ku Klux Klan, what else? Yung mga Black Lives Matter, di ba? Okay, excuse me. Then lastly is we have fraternities as well, di ba? So they are considered to be collectives. So madami siya actually dito. Ayan. Now, when we attempt to analyze these clusters or groups in general, we have to look into its goals, no? So a group will determine or develop structural form that will facilitate the progress of the achievement of each goal and lack structural forms that will hinder the pursuits of its goals. So medyo magulo yung definition dito, no? But basically, every group, especially collectives, have certain goals, no? So within your group of friends, ano yung main goal, no? Is to friendship, is for entertainment, it's for luxury, di ba? Lahat yan may function. Anong goal ng fraternities, yung sinabi ko kanina, they have their goals, more likely in terms of prestige, in terms of camaraderie. Anong groups ng let's go into profession? Anong groups, ano ang goals ng mga police personnel natin? It's to serve and protect. Anong goals ng mga medical practitioners natin? To save human lives. Medyo general yung goal, pwede natin gawing specific. Yung mga medical technicians, di ba? Ano bang trabaho ng medical technicians? Look into check onto the human body, etc. Yan, from the engineering group, 'di ba? Anong function ng civil engineering groups? Anong function ng mga architects? Or in your construction firm, 'di ba? So yung construction firm mismo may goal 'yan, to build this building. Tapos later makikita natin na may certain roles yung mga members ng grupo na 'yan. In order to attain those goals, kailangan ng cohesion. This refers to the extent to which members of a group have the capability to function and interact collectively in the direction of the goals. In organizational management, ang cohesion basically means is kailangan magsama-sama yung mga tao. First is there has to be unity. Now, within the group, may certain roles yan. So, may members dun sa grupo na yan at may role at responsibility siya. So, in your group of friends, may isang comedian, may isang taga-pasa ng bote, tanggero, di ba? Tapos may isang taga-kain ng pulutan, di ba? So, yun yung mga members. And they have that goal, di ba? Depende na yun sa goal ng iyong group of friends. Or in a corporation, di ba? We have the finance, members of the finance, members of the admin, members of the general service offices. Tapos may goals, may function sila in order to attain the goals of the group. Yan. I'll provide more specific examples later. At dito napapasok yung social organization. Now, kanina, anong definition natin ng social institution, di ba? Definite task, let's go back na lang. Yan, definite task and function. Yan yung institution natin. Now, when we define social organization, it is a process of bringing order and significance into human life. Now, medyo mahirap pa rin yung terminology na social organization when we compare it with social institution. But let's look into the term organization. There are two words coming from the term organization. Let's go to the main word muna, organ. Now, 'di ba yung sinabi ni Emil Durkheim, 'di ba, that to understand the society, we look into the society like an organism, parang tao, parang hayop. Now, yun yung society, yung hayop. Now, yung hayop na yan, may mga different organs yan. Same as with the human being. The human being or rather the society. The society being as an organism has different organs. Ang tawag natin dun sa organs na yun, structures. Yan. Itong structures na to, sa loob ng mga structures na yan, may mga organization yan. So, yun yung composition ng social organization. So, para siyang organ ng society. Then, from the second term, coming from organization, yung una kong sinabi is organ, right? Yung pangalawa would now be organized. So, organization is to bring order dun sa buhay ng society or into human social life. Yun yung nagets nyo yung point, no? So, organ is, it serves as an organ in the society. And from the term organize, it's to bring order. Now, going back dun sa analogy natin from the organs, di ba? Kung may nag-dysfunction na isang organ sa katawan, tendency magulo yung katawan natin, di ba? Manghihina, magkakasakit kasi hindi gumagana ng mabuti yung isang organ natin. Ganun din sa society. So, yan yung focal point ng ating social organization. Now, let's look into the specific aspect of organization. The concept organization was used in different ways to stand for a relationship among people. It served as a leeway for people to communicate, to socialize. And second, as a type of a particular social system called formal organizations. We will be studying this one in the succeeding slides. Started from social interaction, then it becomes progressively more regulated, patterned, and orderly. So it started from parties. Kunyari, we look into a political example. People with the same political interests, values, and agenda will form together. Medyo hindi pa siya ganun ka-organized at regulated. Then, habang dumadami sila, dito na nabubuo yung organization. So, gumawa sila ng political party at later they form their own government or join the government tapos they become the government itself. So they now from magulo, hindi ganun ka-organized, mas naging organized sila, mas naging regulated, pattern, and orderly. So nagiging mas process-oriented siya. Characteristics of social organization: differentiation in status and roles on the basis of sex, age, and ability, which may be observed in the activities of different types of people. Recurrent connection between set of activities and the repeated tendency for one type of social activity to follow regularly after another. A system of norms and values govern the social activities, controlling behavior of others and imposing a system of sanction to maintain orderly behavior and repeated activities and behavior. I was supposed to provide examples for each statements. So, for instance, on the first, letter A is binibigyan tayo ng role dun sa organization na yan. So for instance, in your company, di ba? In your company, we call it as an organization, corporation, di ba? Basis on sex, hindi na masyado on age, possibly on experience based. Pero yung sex, going back sa sex, pwede yan, no? So say, paano nga ba sa sex, no? May nakita na ba kayong cashier na lalaki sa supermarket, no? So yan, pwede din, no? Although, ngayon it's more gender, ano ba term? It's not gender neutrality or sensitive. Basta gender equality. Hindi, may mas appropriate term na. But more likely, organizations today will base our roles or yung membership natin dun sa organization yan through ability. In corporations, companies, for instance, di ba? Pag trabaho mo is on the finances, dapat commerce graduate ka. Pag sa operations, specifically engineering, kailangan engineer ka, di ba? Or in the IT, dapat IT ka. Or in other groups, fraternities, di ba yung ability natin, di ba? If makita nila na more on you're a leader, so more likely baka OG ka, ganun, di ba? Etc. Yan. The second one is sets of activities. So loob ng organization, may interaction yan. So yan yung mga activities natin. So it varies, madami activities yan. A system of norms and values. So for every organization, may ibang value system yan. Kaya pag kunyari in companies again, no, lilipat ka ulit sa ibang trabaho, you have to adjust again to yung sistema ng company na yan. Pagdating mo sa college, di ba, iba yung sistema ng group of friends mo sa high school, iba din yung system dun sa kaibigan mo sa college, no? Organizations as well control the behavior of others. Yan. So yan, system of norms and repeated activities and behavior. Very similar with the second definition. Okay, now let's go to your social structure. A while ago, we defined institutions such as a definite task, So organs, more likely from the term itself, organs, they serve as a different with a purpose. Dito sa social structure, we take note of the power arrangement. Yan. But let's look into the definition of a social structure. Social structure is an abstraction and cannot be seen but has to be inferred from the observation of the human behavior. Now, to easily understand social structure, let's go to the second definition. It also refers to the independent network of roles and hierarchy of statuses. So nakita nyo dito, so yung structure natin, may networks na yan. Quite similar din sa organization, pero yung note dito is may hierarchy of status na yan. So madalas na ating organization is not a circular form or pang equal na horizontal, pero may ano siya, parang pwedeng tapsulok. Yan. Kasi may hierarchy niyan eh. And social structure, to distinguish it from organization and institution, we use the term structure when we look into power arrangement. So yan, no? Yung organization na yan, it could be a whole. Now, when we look into the power, to the formation of or the power arrangement, mas appropriate na yung terminology na structure. Kasi dito din natin ina-identify kung sino yung nasa taas na member at yung nasa babang member. The inferior members and the superior members. Okay. Now, in social structure, one thing that we also look is the social status. So, in organization, so possibly organization na dapat kasi may blackboard. In your social organization, tine-check lang natin lahat, no? Tapos yung mga organs, yung mga functions as well, pwede din yan. At pwede din natin siya gamitin sa social structure. But in social structure, to analyze that group of individuals, we look into the power arrangement at yung status ng mga members na yun. So social status refers to the members' position or rank in the hierarchy of power relations. This dynamic or behavior aspect of status is a role. So with comes a status, may certain role yung individual na yan. Social organization has a component known as social function. So social function refers to the result of action that occur in relation to a particular structure and includes the result of the activities of individuals occupying a particular statuses. Yan. So ito din yung role na nasabi natin kanina. So for each members of the structure, may certain role yan. So for each members of the organization, may certain function yan. So here are the following things that a role could be defined. Role performance is the actual behavior of a person who occupies a status. So yung behavior natin would now be yung responsibility natin, di ba? Or yung role natin sa company, for instance. Anong role mo bilang public relation officer to speak in behalf of the organization? Anong role ng isang administrative assistant? So more likely magfo-focus siya sa machinery ng company. A single status may have multiple roles attached to it, constitute a role set. So yan, when you be employed in your companies, di ba? May nakalagay na job responsibilities mo. So ang dami mong role. So isa lang yung status mo. Kunyari bilang administrative officer pero madami kang roles. Ang tawag natin dyan is role set. Role conflict results when individuals are confronted with conflicting expectation. So more likely magkakaroon talaga ng conflict. And role strain occurs when individuals find the expectation of a single role incompatible so that they have different performing the role. Ayan. So we're done with this one, no? I mean, yung succeeding, and as well, I have mentioned this one already, no? So to identify social group, we look into two terminologies provided by Talcott Parson and Emil Durkheim, no? And sino pa nag-define ito? Basta madami, no? Wherein we have Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. Yan. This is more likely, we use this terminology especially on communities, no? When we compare rural communities, urban communities, agricultural communities or societies, and your industrial societies. Now, itong Gemeinschaft is more likely small yung mga tao dito. It is a community of individuals with close personal and family ties. So may tinatawag siya ditong natural will. But when we look into yung pag-cohesion, how do people unite or interact with themselves, may tinatawag na mechanical solidarity dito sa Gemeinschaft. So we look into social cohesion. Ano ibig sabihin ng social cohesion? Again, yung pag-unite at yung pag-interact ng tao para makuha yung certain goals. So dito sa Gemeinschaft, itong mechanical solidarity, It's a form of social cohesion that arises when people in a society maintain similar values and beliefs and engage similar types of works. So more likely nangyayari siya sa mga agricultural societies, sa mga horticultural, sa mga pastoral communities. Mas magagets natin itong Gemeinschaft at Gesellschaft when we look into a comparison. Now, in your rural communities, sa mga farming communities natin or dito sa Cordillera, sa rural, sa mga mountain areas, when you observe, yung mga tao doon magkakakilala or minsan pa nga magkakamag-anak. Yun yung isang feature ng Gemeinschaft. So magkakakilala lahat ng mga tao. So, or for instance, habang you as an outsider, you go to that community, so pagpunta mo doon, lahat ng tao babatiin ka. Kasi kakunti lang yung tao. Dahil kakunti yung tao, medyo homogeneous siya. They share the same values and belief. So more likely, isa lang yung belief system nila dyan, yung religion nila. They share the same belief. Dahil similar sila, homogeneous, because of the factor of kakunti lang sila, mas nag-unite yung mga tao. Yun yung example sa rural communities, sa mga agricultural communities. Now, basically, because of modernity, because of industrialization, tumataas yung population natin. Dito na yun pumapasok yung Gesellschaft. Etong Gesellschaft na to is characterized by impersonal, secondary, contractual, and rationalized relationship. Now, in terms of the will, kanina is natural will, may sinasabi tayo dito na rational will. Etong rational will sa Gesellschaft is characterized by forethought and deliberation. Now, later we will understand it sa examples natin. No? Emil Durkheim designate this as organic solidarity. It is a form of social cohesion that arises when people in a society are interdependent. So, magiging, not basically independent, pero medyo ano na sila, interdependent, but hold to varying values and beliefs and engage in varying types of work. So, mas nagiging specialized na. Yun yung appropriate term dito, no, yung sa interdependent, sa Gesellschaft. Mas nagiging rationalized na siya, mas nagiging engaged in varying types of works. So, dito, sa Gemeinschaft, more likely, homogeneous yung work nila. Kasi nagfo-focus lang sila sa agriculture, sa pastoral societies. Dito, because of industrialization, modernity, and the complexity of different sectors, so may nasa IT na, may nasa finance, pati nga sa finance, may accounting, budget, finance, di ba? Medyo nagiging complicated na. Yung nagiging ano siya, nagiging specialized siya. Dahil nagiging complicated na din yung tao, yung social cohesion is sort of becoming interdependent. There are two things, no? Nagiging impersonal na yung tao. That is on the theory of Max Weber. To give an example, by the way, no, between Gesellschaft and Gemeinschaft. In Gemeinschaft, diba? Yung sinabi ko kanina, yung pagpupunta yung tao, in that community, halos lahat magkakilala, babatiin ka. Now, in Gesellschaft societies, in the cities, for instance, alam nga naman, babatiin mo lahat ng tao sa session habang naglalakad ka, no? So, you know, that is one way na nakikita natin social cohesion sort of diminish, nagfe-fade siya, no? Yan. Organic solidarity most commonly occurs in industrialized, complex societies such as in large American cities like New York, di ba? Yan. In the 2000 or 2000 onwards, yan. So Gemeinschaft, rural, agricultural. Gesellschaft is urban, industrialized, modern. Yan. Also, we look into social groups, into primary groups and secondary groups. Yung primary groups is basically ano siya, mas malapit yung value system, yung communication, yung interaction. So more likely in terms of personal satisfaction, personal belief, mas close ang relationship. Now, pag primary group, yun na i-take note nyo, no? Close yung relationship ng mga tao. Example would be family. And this is the basic primary group. Kasi biologically speaking, naka-attach tayo sa ating parents. Biologically speaking, so naka-attach tayo sa parents. So doon pa lang may relationship na kasi naka-attach tayo At through society, through social interaction, mas nagiging close tayo sa family. And also through time. So pag umpisa nung ipinanganak ka, habang tumatanda ka, sila yung pinakauna mo talagang kilala. Now, habang bata ka, dyan din papasok yung friends. So mas mataas yung association natin. Intimate, the term there is intimate. Family intimate, friendship is intimate. face-to-face association. So, itong virtual learning, hindi tayo under primary group. We are under secondary group. When it comes to cooperation, di ba, mas malakas dito. Yung gangs nito, ang ibig kong sabihin dito sa gangs, by the way, and your cliques, yung cliques is your group of friends. Yung gangs yung talagang, yung pisa pagkabata, no? Pero pag sinasabi mo gangs na katulad sa prison, it could be considered as a secondary group. Now, pag itong secondary group, hindi masyado intimate. Yung face-to-face association, pwede, pero compared it with your primary groups, mas malakas, and as well with your with the cooperation. Dito is yes, you could now see them face to face, possible, or tendency hindi nga pwede, kaya nagiging secondary siya. Pero medyo limited siya, causal, temporary, and limited in personal involvement. They impose patterns of conformity on the members. Unlike dito is the group itself will form the norms. Dito is may norm na naka-offer, may norm na dapat sundan. The individuals can be easily replaced by anyone. So, pwede ka nang mawala, no? The relationship are important only to facilitate the realization of one's end or objective or the group's objectives. So, example of this would now be business organization. Yes, there will be face-to-face association and cooperation, pero yung intimacy hindi ganun kalakas. As well with workplace. So, yun yung difference, no? I also provided this one. You could now just screenshot or pause it to read it, no? And last part is something that we must also look is the type of social group according to in-group and out-group analysis. This is provided by Henry Tafgel, no? He is actually a sociologist and a social psychologist. Pag sinasabi natin in-group, na-mention ko na dun sa discussion natin sa Deviance, in-group is the group with which the individual identifies and which gives him a sense of belonging, solidarity, camaraderie, esprit de corps, and a protective attitude towards the members. Ito yung sinasabi ko, no? I-define ko na din yung outgroup and we will be comparing it. Outgroup is generally viewed as the outsider by the in-group. And more likely, yung problema nitong dalawa is there will be conflict. Yung conflict naman, it's not necessary na suntukan, no? Conflict could be in terms of competition, biases, discrimination, no? Or biases could be. So, to give an example, ako, ulitin ko na example ko dun sa discussion natin sa Deviance. Ako, lalaki. Now, the individual identifies. How can he identify? Could be through characteristics, etc. No? Or yung characteristics na lang. So, I am a male. So, all males will now group themselves and we consider ourselves yung as a group, as in-group. So, in-group yung ka-member ko na lalaki din kasi nga lalaki yung pag-grouping natin. Now, we view dito sa out-group females kasi iba nga yung gender. So, we view them as outsiders. Thus, out-group sila. So, when we group ourselves according to gender, tendencies pwede magkaroon ng conflict such as yung sinabi ko kanina, biases, and ano pa ba? May sasabihin na, nakalimutan ko. There could be biases or differences, di ba? Kaya nga, in-group and out-group. And which is, it could be reflected towards the society, di ba? So, possible conflict would now be yung so-called exploitation between patriarchal societies. Or another thing would now be your school, di ba? Our university as Louisians, di ba? So, kung Louisian ka, yan, may certain identity, which will now lead us to the Louisian community and review other schools as outgroup. From UC, UB, di ba? From BSU, yan. Tendency there will be conflict, no? So, conflict of ideas, etc. because of the grouping, no? So, madami din yan. Hindi lang sa school, sa work, pwede din yan sa companies, etc. Yan. So, I think that is the thing. Reference group, yan. Yung pag-reference natin. I think no need to discuss that one. So, yan na guys. So, that's the end of our discussion. So, I hope you have learned something.